America's Got Talent. Auditions round. Pasadena Civic Auditorium. Summer 2025. The lights dimmed to a simmering hush as the next act was announced. A ripple of anticipation moved through the packed audience. Not because anyone knew these performers, but because something intangible hung in the air, a tension born of the unexpected. Many acts that night had been jaw-dropping, but this one felt different, more human, more raw. Two shadows stepped out from backstage. There was no fanfare, no flashy costumes, no dancers. Just the siblings, a brother and sister whose names would soon echo across millions of screens around the world. They stood for a breath under the intense glow of the stage lights, which bathed them in stark white above the rich red seats of the auditorium. For a moment, they simply looked out at the towering expanse, absorbing the enormity of the moment. The boy was tall with warm, expressive eyes. His sister stood beside him, a quiet strength defined by her calm posture and steady gaze. Neither looked like experienced pop stars. Their clothing was simple, nothing that screamed celebrity, yet from the faint tremble in their shoulders, you could tell this was far from ordinary for them. Then, with a brief shared nod, they turned toward the judge's desk. Simon Cowell, the man famously hard to impress, raised an eyebrow. Behind thick glasses, his eyes carefully measured. Beside him, Sofia Vergara's lips quirked in polite curiosity. Howie Mandel's expression was neutral but interested, and Mel B leaned forward, already scanning the siblings with her trademark energy. In that charged silence, thick enough to hear the collective intake of breath from thousands, the brother leaned toward the microphone. "Good evening," he said, his voice clear though not yet confident. "Thank you for having us. This song, it's for our family." His sister placed her hand gently on the mic stand, her eyes lifting toward the camera, and for the first time, the audience sensed why they were here, not just to sing, but to share something deeply personal. The first few bars struck like a whisper. Their harmonies weren't polished like studio perfection, they were something far more powerful, vulnerable and real. In those early seconds you could see Simon's gaze sharpen, not with dismissal, but curiosity. "Don't stop," the sister murmured to her brother, barely audible, before they launched fully into the song. And then, from that point, the auditorium seemed to hold its breath. Their voices intertwined in a tapestry of emotion, his lower register rich and full, hers higher and light, but purposeful. It wasn't about hitting every note perfectly, it was about the truth in their sound. Every rise and fall was weighted with meaning, their words carrying the weight of shared history and unspoken dreams. The audience leaned in, judges shifted in their seats, and Simon, whose career is built on dissecting raw talent with ruthless precision, sat still, gaze locked on the stage. A hush followed every phrase like a wave pulling back, just before it surged forward again. There was no backing track, nothing but the purity of two voices and an audience captivated by their presence. It reminded everyone listening why shows like this can go viral, why occasionally something more than talent happens on stage. Midway, the sister's voice cracked slightly on a high note, but rather than detract from the performance, it magnified the moment, a reminder that this wasn't about perfection, it was about connection, and with each harmonic blend and emotional nuance, the auditorium, from the judges' panel to the last row of seats, seemed to breathe as one. You could almost hear the gasps, brief, sharp, unmistakable, as the siblings hit a staggeringly beautiful chord progression that ascended into a climax not just musical, but emotional. Simon Cowell, a figure who rarely shows surprise, exhaled audibly, the kind of exhale that's more reaction than judgment. His arms, usually crossed in cool skepticism, unfolded slowly. For the first time, the trademark frown that so often signaled doubt softened. He glanced at Howie. Howie's eyes were glossy, caught somewhere between surprise and genuine admiration. Mel B, known for her bold bets and fiery judgment, looked genuinely moved, shoulders dropping in that subtle way people show when they're not just impressed, but touched. Sofia Vergara's smile grew, tentative at first, then more assured, as if she was beginning to sense what the audience already knew. This wasn't just another good audition. This was impactful. As the final chorus built, the room seemed suspended on each note. Children clutched parents' hands. Strangers turned to one another in wordless astonishment. It was the kind of moment that transcends panels and judges. It was the kind of moment that sticks in collective memory. Like a striking photo you've seen 1,000 times, but only once truly registered. And then it happened. The moment every person in that auditorium and millions watching online were waiting for, they finished. A silence, not awkward but reverent, filled the space between the last note and the applause. And then the applause came in waves, first gentle, then swelling into a thunderous standing ovation. Simon Cowell rose first, not flippantly, not theatrically, but genuinely. It was the rarest sight on a show built on critique and spectacle. Simon standing, clapping with clear admiration. Howie and Mel B didn't hold back either. All 4 judges were on their feet, the stage lights reflecting off every stunned, enthusiastic face. Sofia Vergara reached across and pressed the golden buzzer, that iconic button whose press confers automatic advancement to the live shows. Confetti exploded, cameras flashed, the crowd erupted. The siblings stood, bewildered and glowing, as cheers thundered around them. Simon Cowell, known for biting critiques, leaned toward the siblings with a soft smile and said words no one watching would forget. "You brought something real here tonight. And that's what truly matters." It was more than praise, it was validation. And in that moment, of joy, of applause, of possibility, the world watched as 2 siblings from humble beginnings turned a room full of critics into believers. A song had become more than performance. It had become a moment that shook the world. America's Got Talent 2025. The moment that changed everything. The applause did not stop. It rolled through the Pasadena Civic Auditorium like thunder after lightning, loud, unstoppable, and full of disbelief. People were on their feet, clapping above their heads, some shouting, some wiping their eyes, others simply smiling in shock at what they had just witnessed. It wasn't polite applause. It was earned applause. On stage, the Filipino sibling duo stood frozen. The brother's chest rose and fell rapidly as he tried to steady his breathing. His sister's hands trembled as she clasped them together near her heart, her eyes wide and glossy, reflecting the golden lights raining down from the ceiling. They hadn't expected this. Not like this. They had come to sing. They had come to be heard. They had not come prepared for the entire world to stand for them. Simon Cowell was still clapping, slow, deliberate, and uncharacteristically intense. When the crowd finally began to quiet, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. His expression had changed completely. Gone was the guarded skepticism. In its place was something rarer, genuine respect. "You know," Simon began, his voice calm but weighted, "I hear thousands of singers every year." The audience fell silent again. "Most of them are technically good. Some of them are very good. But what you 2 just did," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "that wasn't just singing, that was storytelling." The sister's lips parted slightly. Her brother looked at her, then back at Simon, eyes glistening. "You didn't try to impress us," Simon continued. "You didn't oversing. You didn't show off. You felt the song. And that's why this worked." The crowd erupted again, shorter this time, but louder. Howie Mandel leaned forward next, his voice already thick with emotion. "I want to say something," he said, raising a finger. "I've been on this show a long time. I've seen magic acts, danger acts, singers, dancers, you name it." He shook his head slowly. "But this felt honest." Howie looked directly at the siblings. "When your voices blended, it wasn't perfect. And that's exactly why it was perfect. I forgot about the competition. I forgot about the cameras. I was just listening." The sister nodded, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. The brother instinctively reached out and squeezed her hand. Mel B was next, and when she spoke, her usual fire was softened by sincerity. "I love big voices," she said. "I love power. But what you did tonight was restraint. And that's hard." She stood up slightly from her chair. "You trusted each other. You trusted the moment, and that connection you have as siblings." She pointed between them. "You can't fake that." Sofia Vergara smiled widely, brushing a hand under her eye before speaking. "I could feel your family," she said softly. "Even without knowing your story, I could feel it." She laughed gently through her emotion. "You made me emotional, and that doesn't happen easily." The audience laughed, then applauded again. The host stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. "How are you feeling right now?" he asked. The brother swallowed hard before answering. "Honestly, overwhelmed." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "We come from a small place," he continued. "We sang together growing up because music was what we had. We never imagined standing here." The sister finally spoke, her voice trembling. "This stage, it's bigger than our dreams. And to hear this from you?" She gestured toward the judges. "It means everything." Simon leaned back in his chair, eyes never leaving the siblings. "There's something else," he said quietly. The room fell completely silent. Simon stood. Gasps echoed through the audience. Cameras zoomed in. Even the siblings sensed something shifting, the air thick with anticipation. "I don't do this often," Simon said, walking slowly toward the desk. "Because this button—" He placed his hand near the golden buzzer. "It's not about sympathy, it's about belief." He looked up at the siblings. "And I believe in you." Before anyone could fully process his words, bang! The golden buzzer was slammed. Gold confetti exploded from above, cascading like fireworks frozen in time. The audience screamed. People jumped to their feet. The music swelled. The stage transformed into a storm of light and celebration. The sister screamed, hands flying to her mouth as she dropped to her knees. The brother stood stunned for half a second, then covered his face, shaking his head in disbelief. "No. No way," he whispered. Simon clapped again, this time smiling openly. Howie jumped up, shouting. Melby screamed, pointing toward the stage. Sophia laughed and clapped, her joy unmistakable. The siblings embraced tightly in the center of the stage as golden confetti stuck to their hair and clothes. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was beautiful. The host rushed over. "You're going straight to the live shows," he shouted over the noise. The sister looked up through tears. "Thank you," she cried. "Thank you so much." Simon stepped forward, extending his hand. "Remember this moment," he said, "because it's only the beginning." As the crowd continued cheering, cameras captured every angle. The tears, the smiles, the disbelief. This wasn't just another golden buzzer. It felt different. It felt earned. Backstage, crew members watched on monitors, some clapping, some wiping their eyes. Social media teams were already buzzing. Producers exchanged looks that said the same thing: "This is going viral." And somewhere in the Philippines, in living rooms, small houses, cafes, and streets, families would soon watch this moment unfold on their screens, seeing two siblings who looked like them, sounded like them, and dared to dream like them. The music faded. The confetti settled, but the impact? That was only just beginning.